Wonder why they always portray Buddha having these long earlobes?
All right, so let's talk about it. I got my ears stretched. I've had my ears stretched for like 13, 14 years, something like that by this point. So I better know a little something about having them. You feel me? So clearly, Buddha having elongated earlobes would indicate that he has some sort of jewelry that has them stretched, of course. In a spiritual context, having stretched earlobes represents patience because this is a very long process. This is a process that cultures do for their children when they're very young. Even when you ask people nowadays, like, how long did it take you to get your earlobes to that size? It's like, oh, it took like a good 7-8 years to get here. It's not a fast process at all. It shouldn't be, because that's very damaging. So it also represents the ability to communicate with spirits. So like being an oracle in a sense, and even on a more mundane level, being able to hear one's own soul, one's own, whatever they characterize as God to them, their higher self, ancestors, being able to hear beyond, being able to hear the underlining factors in a conversation, shit like that. It represents somebody that is in this life to manifest the quality within themselves that listens and is a listener rather than somebody that speaks. Stretched ears was also a representation of wealth and what your place in life was. Whether you were like a warrior or if you were a sage, you were just a regular person walking around, it would also indicate that. They were also used ritualistically. So before I move on, like certain colors would be worn to represent who you were, or a specific color like jade would be used when you're conversing with gods and performing the ritual. Stretching ears was very prevalent in Aztec and Mayan cultures. Above me right here is the river goddess Chalchiuhtlicue. Her name specifically is she of the jade skirt. So when I said that they would wear jade colored ones, they would, use them to communicate with her, or river spirits, river deities. And beside me is Xochipilli. He is the Aztec god of flowers. And you can clearly see the stretched ears on that motherfucker right there, right? So to carry this even further, look at the shape of the ear itself. When you look at this one at Chalchiuhtlicue above me, you could say that, oh, that's just her hair. It's in buns and then, it's hanging down. But I would actually argue that these are the tubular gauges, for lack of better words, that she would wear in her ears. And when you look at the shape of it, the sphere and then the sphere and the pole, represents masculine and feminine. So being able to hear one's inner self, being able to hear that, spirits that are beyond, or being able to hear God. And in a more familiar context, this shape, like I said, I would actually argue that it's actually meant to represent the mushroom. So, psilocybin mushroom. These two statues specifically, well, this one of Xochipilli right here specifically was noted to be of him in a trance or experiencing the mushrooms, an entheogenic experience, and he's in the bliss of it. I would say the exact same thing about Chalchiuhtlicue above. So having the mushroom shaped in the ears, meaning that Aztecs and Mayans, they actively participated in the consumption of psilocybin mushrooms and other entheogens that would allow them to have these, I don't want to use the word hallucinations, but allow them to experience all that the universe, all that's in the universe, you know what I'm saying, that's going on around us, and to actively understand it and communicate it so that we can carry on these practices through next generations, make the changes in our life that we need to, and develop spiritually. So, the ear stretching and the tubular shape of the gauge would actually be a representation of the mushroom. Practicing with mushrooms, using them ritualistically, and hearing what God has to tell you. And to kind of, take this in a different direction, Benolanov, Hunter x Hunter, the ability to contact your ancestors through dancing and the sounds and the music that comes through the holes in his body, that aid in the attack. And, fighting and dancing. Dancing is just a graceful version of fighting, but fighting and dancing go hand in hand. But it is the active, having the holes in the body that allow the music of one's ancestors and the music of one's soul to be portrayed out into the world. If you have your ears stretched, or know somebody that has their ears stretched, if it is ever a point where you wear metal in your ears and the wind begins to blow, you can hear music, you can hear like a tone coming through them. When mine were much smaller, and I've only had one pair of metal ones, and it was kind of like, I'm wearing these and I'm hearing other stuff, and it's like it's the sound coming through almost like a whistle, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, like I said, I've had my ears stretched for a good 13, 14 years, so if I don't know a goddamn thing, I better know something, you know what I'm saying?